Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about something that many people have questions about when upgrading their PC, and that is it necessary to reinstall Windows when you upgrade your hardware? I'll be walking you through my experience talking about how sometimes I was able to get away without the reinstall and when it's really worth starting fresh. Remember, I'm sharing what worked for me, so any steps you take are at your own risk. What you saw in the beginning of the video was my upgraded PC, and here is how it looked before. In my experience, not all of the hardware upgrades are the same when it comes to how they impact your Windows installation. In my experience, components like RAM, SSD and even GPUs don't always demand a Windows reinstall, but when you upgrade something like your motherboard, well, that's a different story. Let's break down these categories, starting with the easier stuff and moving toward the complex. First, let's talk about the GPUs or graphic cards. If you're upgrading your GPU, you're in luck. Most of the time, Windows handles it perfectly. When I upgraded from a mid-range card to a more powerful one, I didn't need to reinstall Windows. Here is how it went for me. I powered down my system, swapped out the old card, powered it back up, and Windows detected the new hardware. But there's the catch, drivers. Based on my experience, the real key to a smooth GPU upgrade is making sure you install the correct drivers. I always recommend fully uninstalling the old driver using the recommended tools and installing the new GPU drivers, which can help avoid conflicts that could slow down your system or cause crashes. In one upgrade, I forgot this step and ended up with a screen that flickered a lot. Not fun. A quick reinstall of the drivers fixed that, but it's a lesson worth sharing. Next up, RAM and storage. These are pretty much the easiest of PC upgrades. Adding more RAM or upgrading to a faster SSD is pretty much easy because Windows detects them automatically. However, if you are replacing the storage that Windows installed on, that might be a little bit difficult. For example, if you are cloning your old HDD to a new SSD, make sure to use a reliable cloning tool and double check that your partitions are aligned correctly. Additionally, make sure to back up your files before you do anything. Now let's talk about the motherboard where things get tricky. In my experience, upgrading a motherboard is like giving your PC a new identity. When I swapped out my motherboard for upgrade, Windows did boot up initially, but not without issues. I got driver error, random freezes, and even a few lovely blue screens of death or BSODs. Trust me, seeing a BSOD after a big upgrade isn't exactly encouraging. This is because Windows ties its license and configuration closely to the motherboard. Some people suggest just installing the new drivers and moving on, but in my experience it is safer to back up my files than just do a fresh install of Windows. Now you might be thinking, is there a way to avoid reinstalling Windows after upgrading my motherboard? The answer is maybe. If you're changing to a motherboard with a similar chipset, you might be able to get away with updating drivers and reactivating Windows without a full reinstall. In one instance, I swapped out my motherboard with a similar chipset and managed to keep my system running with just a few tweaks. But here's the reality, even if Windows boots up and runs, you could still run into random issues down the line, apps misbehaving, driver causing conflicts, or even those BSODs. What I'm telling you is based on my experience and many of these may not happen for you, and I'm only telling you what happened to me. If you end up using your old Windows installation, make sure to use the Windows Activation Troubleshooter to relink your license and update all of the relevant drivers from the manufacturer website. So when is a fresh install worth it? In my view, if you're upgrading your motherboard, a clean install of Windows is often the smoothest path forward. Sure, it's more work upfront, you have to reinstall your apps and transfer your data, but you avoid a ton of potential headaches. If you do decide to reinstall the Windows, here is what works best for me. First, make a checklist of your essential apps and settings, then back up all of your personal files and double check that they are backed up. Trust me, there is nothing worse than realizing you missed an important folder. Create a Windows installation media on a USB drive, disconnect all of the non-essential drives during the installation to avoid any mix-ups. After the reinstall, install your drivers in this order: chipset, graphics, sound, and other things like keyboard, mouse, and others. This will ensure that everything runs smoothly based on my experience. So to wrap up, if you're swapping out smaller components like your GPU, RAM, or storage, a reinstall is usually unnecessary. But if you're changing your motherboard, consider a clean reinstall to save yourself from potential things that might happen. Again, all of this is based on my personal experience, so keep that in mind if you decide to upgrade your own system. At the end, for any question, feel free to comment below. Other than that, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the future tech tips. Thanks for watching and have a great day.